Greetings gamers, I'm Gav. Welcome to another Path of Exile lore video. This is a continuation of my lore playthrough where we'll cover Act 3. As usual, before we dive in, let's quickly recap last episode. Traveling through the southern forest from Merveil's lair, we arrive at the forest encampment. There we met and aided Groost, Yena, and Silk, all three natives of Rayclast from a tribe known as the Asmeri. In the forest encampment, we also met an elderly exile by the name of Aramir that the Asmeri accepted into their camp. Within the Chamber of Sins, we rescued Helena in Maligaro's lab from an abomination named Beetleitis. Helena is a member of the Ebony Legion with a lot of knowledge on our enemies. She no longer wished to follow piety and returned with us to the forest encampment. We assisted the odd beastmaster named Einhar by finding and capturing beasts deemed worthy by these first ones that he keeps referring to. In the surrounding lands to the east and west, we took care of the unruly bandits of the forests, Creighton and Alira, striking a bargain with Oak, the third bandit in the north, who would share the power of the amulets with us and only wanted peace. We entered the Vol Temple ruins by using Maligaro's spike to extract calibric extantia from the baleful gem. We then injected that toxin into the roots of an ancient tree named Larada in order to clear the entrance to the Vol ruins. While exploring the ruins, we accidentally unleashed a curse of darkness upon the land. We sought to clean up our mess by ascending the Vol pyramid and defeating the Vol Oversoul. The way to Sarn opened from the top of the pyramid. We stepped through the opening as the pyramid crumbles around us. Before we begin this act, I wanted to take up Einhar on his offer to explore this menagerie of his. We enter and speak with Einhar.
Welcome to Einhar's Menagerie, Exile. This is where I keep the beasts we capture. Do not worry about their well-being. I do not think they will worry about yours. A little humor for you. But seriously, Exile, Einhar takes very good care of the beasts we capture. I feed them, clean them, and read them the poems I write. Then, when you are ready, we slaughter them at the blood altar to prove to the first ones that we are worthy of survival. That part is not so friendly to the beasts, but if you read my poetry, you may consider it an act of mercy. Again, humor! My poetry is great. Please, look around. Take your time. But do not feed the animals. That is Einhar's job. The arena just north. That is the blood altar. It is where you will perform the ritual of sacrifice by combat. Once you have captured a few beasts, go to the altar in the middle and begin the ritual. The first ones are watching. Show them you are worthy.
Before engaging with the blood altar, I took a look around the menagerie. We haven't caught that many beasts just yet, but as you do, they start to appear in these cages and all of these different biomes surrounding the menagerie, which I thought was pretty awesome. Looping back around to the menagerie itself, we enter the arena to find the blood altar. We choose the beasts we want to sacrifice and they're released into the arena with us. Einhar says,
The first ones are watching, Survivor. Don't disappoint them.
We fight them off as their blood pools and drains into the center of the altar.
You are truly a survivor.
We claim our prize and speak with Einhar.
The crunch of bone, the splatter of blood. Is there anything as satisfying? You have proved you're a survivor, and the first ones have rewarded you. Capture more beasts, perform more rituals. This is what we will do, yes? The first ones have many blessings to bestow. We will discover them. Now go, survivor. More beasts await.
Interested in the magic of the blood altar, we ask for more details.
The end is coming, Exile. Of that, I'm sure. Just not so sure when. Maybe tomorrow? Maybe 3 years from now? No more than 3 years from now. When the end arrives, we must be ready. The first ones will return. They will bring the survivors with them to the Great Grove. We must prove we are worthy. We must sacrifice the beasts we find at the blood altar. Feed the altar the blood of these beasts, and the first ones will bless us. And perhaps reveal to us their secrets.
Now knowing more about Einhar and the lore behind capturing these beasts for him, we thank him and enter the City of Sarn. Sarn appears to lie completely in ruin, with not a single building entirely intact. Things called undying outcasts crawl towards us on all fours. Skeletons and beetle-like creatures called carrion swarmers also attack us on sight. Making our way west, we find a guard captain and his Ebony Legion soldiers. They're guarding a red-haired woman who's tied to a stone. We defend ourselves as they immediately try to take us down. Slaying the captain and his soldiers, we untie and speak with the captive woman. Her name is Clarissa.
I don't mean to sound ungrateful, but we've no time for talk. Tolman was out here with me and now Piety has him. They're headed for the Crematorium. I've no chance against Piety and your blackguards, but you're another matter entirely. Please, you found it in your heart to rescue me. Tolman is just as worthy of your generosity.
We offer to help her find Tolman. We're searching for Piety anyway. Continuing west, we fight through more undying outcasts, skeletons, and carrion swarmers. On the nearby destroyed wall, there's some kind of message painted onto it. This ancient graffiti reads,
"Mortality is the mother of life. We have turned our backs on her."
Interesting. We explore the remainder of this destroyed city and come to an encampment in the center. On our way through this camp, we notice a large statue of some kind of goddess, and the same ascendancy plaque that we see when we locate the trials throughout Rayclast. Descending a spiral staircase into the main section of the camp, we see several people within, including Clarissa. First, we approach a merchant-looking man named Hargan.
Now you're a familiar face. A face that cost me a good deal of coin back in the arenas of Theopolis. Took you for a privileged pretty boy with a death wish. Bet all that against you. Turns out you're as dandy with the blade as you were with your wardrobe. Well, at least you've brought Clarissa back to us. I'll take that as half payment for what I figure you owe me. Problem is, one dyed lover isn't much good to anyone. Like gloves, they tend to be more useful than pairs. The missing glove in this case is a young fella named Tolman. Fetch Tolman back for us, and you and I can happily call it quits.
We ask them more about the slums where Tolman was taken.
The slums are east of here. Used to house the unwashed of the Empire a couple centuries back. Now it's home to the walking ulcers and sores of this poor city.
Next, we speak with a Karui-looking woman named Maramoa.
Maramoa Patua thanks you, Exile, for returning our Clarissa to us. She is the gentle heart of this place, a spirit still capable of love in this wasteland of hatred. Yet that gentle heart remains in jeopardy. Tolman isn't deserving of Clarissa, but she'll not smile until he's by her side.
Tolman and Clarissa seem to be very meaningful to this camp. She speaks to us about the Ebony Legion.
Dominus and his Ebony Legion arrived some time ago. Now the blackguards scour Sarn like hungry maggots on a carcass. What are they looking for? Only that which is best left unfound.
We speak with Clarissa, and she's a bit upset that we haven't found Tolman yet.
You're alone. So Tolman's... You didn't go to the crematorium? No, of course you didn't. This isn't your fight. I'm sorry. It was wrong of me to put that on you. To ask you to risk your life for someone you don't even know. Don't worry. I'll work something out. I always do.
We assure her that we'll find Tolman. Near the dock of the camp sits a mutilated and deformed man. We speak with him.
Keep your distance, Exile. The name's Grigor, and when you've had your eyes fill of my twisted visage, how about you turn those fine jellies of yours eastward? Yes, you've brought Clarissa home to us, and once again I see she pesters me with pity. There's only so much broth, so many bouquets that a man can take. For a criminal, Clarissa has a strangely soft center. Still, I'd rather not see that heart of hers harden. See if you can find that lost boy mate of hers. With him around, Clarissa doesn't have as much time to bother me.
Curious where Grigor is from, he has this to say when asked.
Death came to town. The roaring Ezomites wore red. The red of blood, the red of the fray. Death came to town. The crying Ezomites wore black. The black of disease, the black of dismay. Death came to town. The silent Ezomites wore grey. The grey of twilight. The grey of decay. Only the Isles of Scoth were spared. Once a backwater of my proud civilization, now all that remains of the Ezomites.
Ascending the spiral staircase of the camp, we continue east toward the slums. We need to find the crematorium where Piety and her Ebony Legion soldiers took Tolman. The slums of Sarn also lie in ruin. Cutting our way through more undying outcasts, skeletons, and large beetles, we find more graffiti on the ancient stone walls here.
The Monkey King has built his throne on your back. A throne of gold and gem, polished with blood and tear. Throw off the Monkey King and his shining privy before your back is broken.
Who is the Monkey King? Finally, far to the west, we locate and enter the crematorium. It looks a lot like Axiom Prison. As we enter, we hear screams of a man from afar. I hope that wasn't Tolman. Searching through the prison-like corridors and chambers, we fight off necromancers and their minions, as well as molten earth giants called cinder elementals. Suddenly we hear the sound of turning gears and locate a nearby trial. The bronze monograph reads,
On the night of 1,000 ribbons, our finest city burned. It burned with fires lit by cruelty and neglect. It burned with shame for giving the title of emperor to a man who did not deserve it.
We enter the trial. Sections of the floor in this trial has hot coals beneath the metal grating. The grating glows red at its hottest moments and cools down in a cycle. We cross these sections when the heat of the floor is manageable and cut down any skeletons in our path, finding levers around each room to unlock doors leading further through the trial. We finally come to the final room. Destroying the remaining enemies surrounding the plaque, we reach out to touch the plaque to reveal the portal and this dialogue.
Allow your wisdom to be tempered by the flames of the past.
Returning to the beginning of the trial, we explore the remainder of the crematorium. At last, we reach Piety at the very bottom of the chamber. Tolman is strapped to a table that looks exactly like the thaumaturgy device that we saw in Maligaro's lab, deep within the Chamber of Sins. As we approach, Piety says,
That somber expression doesn't become those fetching features at all. Cheer up and dance with me.
Piety and her blackguards attack us. We take down every soldier she has and focus our full attention on Piety. Before we can deal any meaningful damage,
Enough of this!
She retreats and teleports away. Tolman doesn't seem too responsive. As we attempt to remove him from this device, the whole thing goes up in smoke. Tolman's bracelet falls from his wrist and lands beside the table. We pick it up and return to the Sarn Encampment. Poor Tolman. We speak with Clarissa to tell her the bad news. We were too late.
Poor Tolman. I made this bracelet for him when he first arrived here. Idiot said he'd never take it off. I called him a liar. He didn't, though. Not once. I need to give you something. I asked a lot of you out there in the slums, more than I should have. You tried, and that's all we exiles can ever hope to do.
As thanks for trying, she gives us a set of keys.
Those keys unlock the gates to the sewers. Tolman found them. Figure that in the worst of times, people will hide their wealth in the worst of places. We were never game to test his theory. Not with the Undying down there. But you're strong. Stronger than any of us here. I don't think you need to fear the dark.
We ask her more about Tolman.
Sorry, I need some more time to think. We'll talk soon, I promise.
We give Clarissa time to grieve. Next, we talk to Grigor.
I no longer dream when I sleep. I have a nightmare. The same nightmare over and over. The mirror. It's never my reflection looking back. The first time that mirror appeared to me, it was Cole I saw. A rapist from Oriath I had the displeasure of sharing a pen with in Gravisius' stockade. Piety took him for her experiments, and that night I saw her handiwork while I slept. This time it was Tolman, flesh dried to leather, organs shrunk to husks, blood trickling through his skeleton like red dust in an hourglass. It's Piety's gift to me, that mirror. At least I won't be seeing Clarissa the next time I look into it. Make sure it's not you I see either. I walked halfway across this forsaken continent because of an ode. Of jewels and eternity, it's called. For twinkled promises of jewels and eternity, the Gemling Queen gave her heart and body to the King of Shades for one more day in the sun. The last day in the sun. That's but a portion of the full epic. The Gemling Queen lived, and she's the enigma behind the fall of the Ezomites and the Eternals both. Look to the Solaris temple to the northeast. Find the Gemling Queen's remains before Piety does, and destroy them.
We then speak with Maramoa.
Tolman's dead then. Another victim of Piety's cruelty. Perhaps he escaped lightly. Look upon Grigor to see what life entails under Piety's influence. Let me offer you something, in recognition of all that you have done for us. We shall mourn Tolman's death, as we shall treasure Clarissa's life. General Gravisius demands absolute obedience from his blackguards, meaning he's surrounded himself with cowards and lackwits, unable to lift a finger without orders. If you are able, traverse the river and murder Gravisius in his own barracks. You'll be ripping the very mind from the skulls of our enemies.
We ask her more about Tolman and if Clarissa will be all right.
Clarissa will weep for Tolman. She must. The cloud is darkest before the rain.
Curious about the Ezomite, we ask her about Grigor.
Grigor straddles two worlds. One foot planted on this soil, one in the dirt of spirit and shadow. When you speak with him, be sure to know from which world his words arise.
Maramoa tells us about a tale of the Purity Rebellion that took place here.
It's an often told story among the Karui, how Vol of Thebris bent his knee to my ancestor, King Calm, and promised freedom in return for war. While Vol raised his Purity Rebellion in the heart of the Empire, Calm took Lord Lion Eye's head and the southern coast all the way to Siren's Cove. It was the greatest conquest the Karui have ever seen.
We ask her the best way to cross the river to reach the Ebony Legion camp.
If I knew how to cross the river safely, I'd be wearing Gravisius' head on my belt.
The man near Maramoa had this to say about Tolman's passing.
I'll miss a boy. He was always up for a laugh, whether it was at his expense or not. But I wouldn't miss that Clarissa more. Argan's the name, by the way, and it's my honour to welcome you to dirty old Sarn, the metropolis of opportunity. The opportunity to make something of yourself, or the opportunity to have a very messy death. Victaria was a poet what ended up leading a rebellion, right under the nose of Emperor Chittis. But here's what really interests me. Our wordsmith was quite a talented larcenist as well. Pulled off the heist of the century, in the name of the people, of course. 3 finely crafted platinum busts, commissioned by Chittis for his favourite trio of generals. Victario and his coppers hold up in the sewers. Now that you have Clarissa's keys, perhaps you'd be inclined to search out those heroic busts for me. I'm sure I can make it well worth your while.
We agree to locate those busts in the sewer for Hargan. He tells us how he knows Clarissa.
I was Clarissa's guardian angel back in Oriath. Put food on the table in return for a bit of light work. I try to keep her out of trouble as best I can here, but Sarn's full of secrets, and Clarissa's full of curiosity.
We ask him about Maramoa.
She's just so Ample is our Marimore. In my mind, you'll find no saucier specimen of womanhood. It's her tattoos and that fancy talk she does. Intoxicating. She's a cool one, though.
Hargan says this about Grigor.
I can't imagine what that poor bastard's been through. It's a miracle Grigor hasn't completely lost his mind. Granted, he's lost one or two pieces along the way, but there's still plenty that's worth listening to.
We see what he knows about General Gravisius.
Gravisius is the mailed and bloodied right hand of Dominus. And I thought the Templar were meant to be spiritual men of deepest humanity. You notice the sarcasm in my tone, right? Had to smuggle a fellow out of Theopolis once. Got a bit too friendly with Gravisius' wife, he did. Every blackguard was out on the streets looking for him, so I had to think lateral-like. We took to the drains and didn't put our heads above the pavement until we sniffed the sea. A grubby bloody job it was, but worth it for the coin he paid. You want a piece of Gravisius? Sometimes the only way up is down.
I think he means through the sewers. Curious about the Purity Rebellion that Marimoa spoke of, we see what Hargan knows.
I'm no history scholar, but I know that Emperor Chittus was overthrown by Vol of Thebris in the so-called Purity Rebellion. But Vol had the shortest reign of any internal emperor. The cataclysm sort of that.
Thanking him for all the information, we take the sewer keys into the slums and use them to unlock our way to the sewer tunnels beneath Sarn. The toxicity and smell is pungent. We make our way through more undying and locate the 3 platinum busts that Victario stashed down here. The first is a bust of Marseilles Lioni. The second is of Gaius Centauri. And as we reach the stash of the third, we hear singing in the distance.
Cast your burning gaze to thine soul. Cast your burning gaze to thine soul. Cast your burning gaze to thine soul.
As we approach where we heard the singing from, we see a woman dressed in Templar clothing. They stop suddenly, almost embarrassed when they see us.
What do we have here? Yet another of Oriath's cast-offs? With the problems we're facing here, I do wish they'd send someone with a little more utility. Alas, we have useless exiles blowing in like spores on the wind. Cassia, by the by. Pleasure. See this growth? Not on me, The fruiting body. The big mushroom? Strange, is it not? Wouldn't expect something of this scale in a place like this. Stands out like a sin during a sermon. Unfortunately, this is one of many, and they're all filled with an extremely toxic fluid. Quite dangerous to one's health, and no one is paying any attention. No one but I, of course. That's why I've attached this purification pump to the gleba. The spore mass. The big yellow round part. I plan to pump the toxic fluids from the mycelium, the rooty-looking parts, through the spore mass, robbing this growth of the fluids that allow it to thrive. Even if I can't find a use for it, at least it won't get into dangerous or clumsy hands. In response, the mycelium is going to react violently. This is where you enter. My Mother Superior used to tell us that God helps those who help each other. Well, I'm dubious of the sort of help you might provide, as it has not escaped me that you are, for lack of a better term, drenched in viscera. Even so, I have some devices we can deploy to help protect my purification pump here. When you're ready, start the pump, then choose a place along the mycelium to deploy a device. Then get yourself ready. As I expect, there'll be more viscera.
Before engaging with this pump of Sister Cassia, we pick up the third statue that Hargan wanted us to find. This one is a bust of Hector Titucius. When we reach the Ichor pump, Cassia says,
Well done. Now be a good assistant and find a place to deploy a tower.
She helps us to construct a pylon tower near portals that have sprouted from the roots of the mycelium. As we kill monsters and keep the pump safe, the roots and paths begin to branch out.
It's branching, Exile!
Suddenly, the large pustule is destroyed. We speak with Sister Cassia.
Success! And I couldn't have done it without God. I suppose we were of some help as well. Don't get a big head. Alas, this is but one of many impure growths. We have much work ahead of ourselves if we are to banish this blight from Rayclast. Since you performed adequately, I believe we should make our partnership ongoing. You'll know where to find me.
Much like Einhar, we'll be working pretty closely with Cassia throughout our journeys in Rayclast. We ask her about being exiled here.
Yes, it's true. I, like you, am an exile. I caught the High Templar's eyes several years ago. I showed an interest in the mechanical arts, and he had need for someone like myself for some highly secret projects he had started. He sought ways to tap into the power contained within the virtue gems in ways that I'm not sure were in line with God's plan. I did not openly refuse his orders. I simply interpreted them differently. The mechanisms I built were brilliant and powerful, and totally useless for his desires. I may have kept some of them. Unfortunately, as you know, little slips past Dominus. I was exiled as a matter of secrecy, rapidly replaced by some little whore. What? She is a whore!
She goes on to say this about her replacement.
You likely know her by the name High Templar Dominus gave her. Piety. Ugh! A whore turned thaumaturgist turned inventor. Or at least, she wishes she were. I've seen some of her work. Unimpressive, considering the resources she has available to her. Not that I'm envious, I'm not. Really, good for her. But, you know, creators have a habit of getting caught in the teeth of their own creations, and Piety seems to favor creations with many, many teeth.
Curious about the inventions that she mentioned, we asked Cassia about her creations.
I've worked on many beautiful little machines in my time. Let's see. There was one that was originally designed to rapidly peel and pith fruit. That one is now called the Discalper. The portable oven turned out to be less of an oven and more of a red-hot ember dispenser. Still quite popular. And of course, the towers I have been assembling for use in protecting the portable purifying pumping unit. Those I am particularly proud of. Powered by the toxic fluid that runs through the fungal fibers. Surprisingly robust and safe. Relatively safe. Almost no one has died yet, who wasn't meant to.
We inquire further on the fungi that we helped her destroy.
I've not seen anything like it before. The growths show no sign of intelligent thought, no clear ambition, yet the moment the pump's needle pierces the fungal flesh, creatures of all shapes and sizes begin to emerge from the mycelium. And they never stray away from it. The fluid within those growths may hold the key to controlling the minds of creatures, and hopefully something to protect us from such a power. Too many already vie for control of our wills. But that is the domain of the divine.
From one of the caches that appeared around the mycelium, we received an oil of some kind. We asked Cassia what these oils do.
I see you've scavenged some oils with your sticky little hands. What in God's name are you planning to do with them? Oh, don't bother answering, I don't actually care, as I have a much better use than whatever nonsense you had planned. Bring me a few phials of those oils and I'll anoint your amulet and rings, as is tradition among the clergy. Such a blessing will unlock gifts within you that you may not even know you had. God helps those who help each other, after all.
We thank our new friend for all their information and for introducing us to yet another threat on Rayclast. Continuing through the sewers past more rabid undying, we reach an opening on the other side. Ascending the stairs, we enter the marketplace. What would have been a bustling market now lies in ruin. The stalls are empty and destroyed. Skeletons, beetles, snakes, and more undying outcasts fill the marketplace. Inside one of the ruined buildings, we come across an ancient notebook.
I write this now in hope that someone will remain. Someone may remember. The sun is an orb of blood. Twisted twilight shrouds my eyes. The air reeks of anguish. Sarn has plunged into nightmare. The man who served me coffee now writhes on the floor. He rants of visions he alone can see, as writhing red tentacles grow from his face, as if his eyes had been seeds waiting to sprout. He is quiet now, my waiter. No more cackling and screaming. Dead. Of my fellow patrons, only 2 live. The others have fallen. Their blood is everywhere. The survivors, gemlings both, their skin shrivels and grays to the hue of necrosis. Their gems flare with unholy luster, their eyes black as hatred. A gemling ghoul, it twisted off a corpse's head, gnaws at skull-like dog. My head now, visions clawing at me. Thinking burns. I see horror. Envy the mute corpses at my feet. Words flay me, flee me. All is madness.
Was he speaking about the Undying? Some sort of plague or foul magic made them this way. We press on, hoping to find out more. To the north, the statues themselves come to life and attack us, including a statue named Marseus the Defaced. Was this a statue of Marseus Lionii? We destroy the ancient statues and locate the waypoint for this area. A crypt lies in the center of the marketplace, surrounded by a floor of black granite. Its archway and descending stairs are still relatively intact. We enter the Catacombs. As we explore the ruined hallways of the Catacombs, we notice more ancient graffiti stamped on the wall.
There is nothing eternal in this empire of ours, but the names of our day that shall be revered or reviled in the centuries to come.
We continue to explore and take down all the statues, necromancers, and their skeletons that we see along the way. Finally, we come to another trial of ascendancy. We read from the bronze monograph.
An emperor cannot allow himself to become buried in the shadowed vaults of self-doubt, cannot allow thoughts of imagined disaster to spin about inside his mind like so many strife-splintered wheels. An emperor navigates his way through the terrors of perplexity with his eyes set firmly on the rising sun.
We enter the trial to find large, round, rotating saw blades circling the room. Carefully stepping between them, we navigate through the trial, dodging each saw blade. Reaching the end, we touch the plaque and hear,
An emperor must bear 2 blades, hope in the left hand, surety in the right.
That's 5 down, 1 to go. We take the portal back to the beginning of the trial and exit the Catacombs back into the marketplace. Upon exploring the remainder of the market, we locate a sealed ornate chest tucked away in the corner of a ruined building. Inside the chest is a strange glass object called the Decanter Spiritus. It reads, Man is blinded by the mud of his corporeal self. Only through the transformation of the material into the spiritual can we hope to taste the full body of life. Signed by Malachi the Soulless. We now know who the 3 are that Dominus mentioned to Piety in Axiom Prison, the ones that he sent Piety to study and learn from. Shavron of Umbra, Maligaro the Inquisitor, and Malachi the Soulless One. Shavron and Maligaro served under Malachi as they researched and refined the thaumaturgical arts through the use of virtue gems and horrendous experiments to further the power of the Empire. Exploring the remainder of the marketplace, we locate the entrance to the next area, the Battlefront. Past barricades and encampments, we run into several groups of Blackguard soldiers. Odd tapestries line the floors, scattered like corpses. As we come to the center of this area and near the bridge, we locate a large camp of Ebony Legion, led by one Captain Aurelianus. We take down the captain and his soldiers and explore their camp. They were guarding the path to the bridge, as well as a large chest. Inside the chest, we find some kind of ribbon spool. We're not sure what to do with this yet. As we attempt to cross the bridge, our path is blocked by some large magical force field. It's impenetrable, and we'll have to find some other way around in order to confront General Gravisius. To the west is an entrance to the docks. We continue exploring the northwestern side of the battlefront. There we find a lot more soldiers and also floating tapestries, much like the ones we saw on the ground as we entered this area. They're called assault ribbons, and attack both us and the Blackguards. I also located more ancient graffiti on a wall in this area. It reads,
The shadow whispers and simpers at the Monkey King's feet. When the Monkey King puts his back to the sun, it is the shadow that leads the way.
Making our way through more ribbons, statues, and Blackguards, we locate the entrance to a massive temple, the Temple of Solaris. As we enter, our duelist says,
"It seems there's glory in the old empire yet."
the hallways in this temple are immaculate, considering their age and the destruction that has taken place in the surrounding areas. Ornate golden statues and trim line the walls as we pass through, fighting past more sentient ribbons and tapestries. We locate the waypoint for the temple and return back to camp. We hand over the 3 platinum busts to Hargan. They were definitely weighing us down.
The Beatles poet could hide us spoils from chitters, but not from us, eh? I knew you was the exile for the job. I'm sure you've been more than compensated already from Victario's stockpiles, but here's a little extra. Care of something I found under a dead man's bed. Why? Just because I like you.
We speak with Maramoa about her thoughts on Hargan.
Hargan is a man of many claims, and those claims seldom dance harmoniously together. A lie is a death sentence in Namakanui, so I was raised a daughter of truth. Hargan is a son of self-interest. He's no warrior nor spirit singer. He's a korangi. I don't know the right word in Oriathan, but in Karui it means he who wins wars with false promises.
He's a salesman, that's for sure. She has this to say about the sewers.
Traversing the sewers under the river. I should have thought of that myself. Yet, the more of a picture you paint of that undying concoction in the sewers, the less I want to see it. If you manage to destroy it, expect a storm of undeath to descend upon you. The dark is their home, and there'd be nowhere more homely to the undying than a pitch-swathed drain under a river.
Can confirm, we definitely found the sewers to be full of undying. We show her the ribbon spool that we found in the Blackguards' camp.
This ribbon spool device. Why would the Blackguards want to protect it? And why on this side of the river? What is its import to them? And why have they not taken it back to their encampment? I give you only questions, I know. You found this near the Solaris temple? Then perhaps that's where you should look for your answers.
Clarissa is ready to speak with us now. Everyone here seems very fond of Clarissa, but what does she think of them? We ask her about Maramoa first.
Maramoa? I've heard that the Karui have this philosophy. Makanui, the way of the warrior. I don't think you could get any more Makanui than her. She took it upon herself to look after me, before Tolman arrived. Saved my skin more than once. I'm fine with that. Beats being on her bad side.
Here's her thoughts on Hargan.
Hargan likes to think he was my kind old uncle back in Theopolis. Granted, the work he gave me saved my parents and I from starvation. This was after my father lost the family fortune at the card table, and we had to give up the manor in the country for a flea box in Theopolis. But he's not half as generous as he makes out. When Hargan gives you something, you can be damned sure that he's getting his pound of flesh in return.
She had this to say about Grigor.
No one should have to go through what Grigor has. I help him as much as he'll let me, but he's a proud one, and so he should be. He's survived what has destroyed too many of us.
Clarissa knew piety before Dominus even named her piety.
Halfway across the world, and yet the tie between Vanir and I endures. That was Piety's real name back in Theopolis, before her rise to greatness. Vanir sold her thaumaturgy in the day, her body at night. Sought after, she was, enough so to become one of my best buyers. But money never meant much to Vanir. No, she was striving for something better, nobler. Used to tell me that life needn't be this hard. It's time you all realized that. I bet she fed Tolman the same bloody line.
We inquire further about Piety's past, her gems, and how she became Piety in the first place.
The Blackguards talked about Piety's precious gems being infected with nightmare. Tolman, what did she do to you? Vanir was arrested for consorting with the unholy and condemned to the pyre. This was before the banishments. Dominus shared a last supper with her, heard her confession. Most think Vanir earned Dominus's patronage on her back. I don't. Vanir gave Dominus her better life and got a new name in return. You can count on one thing. Piety's grand future won't include the likes of you, me, or Tolman.
Since we have access to the Solaris temple, but we're unable to cross the bridge, we ask about the Lunaris temple.
You find a high enough spot and you can see the Lunaris temple over the river, at the western edge of the city. Since the blackguards arrived, the clouds above that temple have been stained with the blackest of smoke. You can see it sometimes when the westerly blows. It stinks worse than death.
We ask her about the Cataclysm.
On the fall of the Empire, the historians are deathly silent. After the Purity Rebellion, the Kingdom of Kalm blockaded Oriath, preventing any trade or correspondence with the mainland. It's said that Kalm planned to invade. Only when the Karui retreated did Oriath get any news from Rayclast, but by that time there wasn't really anyone left to tell the tale.
She goes into further detail on the Purity Rebellion.
Chittus thought that the gemling was the pinnacle of human progress. These glorious gems have brought us within spitting distance of godhood, he once said. The High Templar at the time, Vol of Thebris, thought they were a perversion. He wanted the Empire made pure, cleansed of the stain of thaumaturgy. You look at Sarn and tell me which one you think was right. And while you're out there, look out for monkeys. No, not those bloody monkeys from Frisia. These ones are painted on the walls. I think you'll find them enlightening.
We see what she knows about the sentient statues that we fought.
I know. So strange that stone and metal should move and live as you and I. Still, I read that Chittus's sculptors used to soften their materials with thaumatic sulfite, a byproduct of gem refining. It's the only connection that I can fathom between the Cataclysm and the living sculptures of Sarn.
Last but not least, we speak with Grigor on his thoughts about Maramoa and Hargan.
Maramoa's sure of herself, and that kind of surety gets you killed in Sarn. You and all those around you. Hagen's got the right idea. Don't believe in anything that you can't trade or eat. I wouldn't rely on Hagen in a fight, and I wouldn't put too much faith in what he says. But he has one highly useful asset. His obsession with self-preservation. If Hagen deems you of use in keeping his fat self alive, he'll do almost anything for you.
He speaks to us about his experience with General Gravisius.
I tried to penetrate the Solaris temple in the northeast. Almost got myself killed by the bloody ribbons that guard the place. Bizarre, floating tapestries they are. Creatures of cloth and thaumaturgy. Fortunately, a few legionnaires got in the way. While the ribbons eviscerated them, I ran straight into Gravisius. He dragged me over the bridge to the Lunaris temple in the west and put me in Piety's tender care. Didn't say a single word to me the whole time. I was nothing but a spoil of war to him.
Thanking Grigor for the information, we waypoint back to the Solaris temple. Destroying ribbons and statues, we come to a room with two larger tapestries, the Infernal Seal and the Voltaic Seal. Both fall quickly to our axe. At last, we come to a staircase descending further into the temple. Nothing but ribbons and statues line the golden hallways of this lower level. Working our way through incrementally, I found no lore objects or secrets. Finally reaching the end of this floor, we come to the waypoint, and a strange woman standing on a platform above us. We travel up the stairs and speak with her. It's Lady Diala, the Gemling Queen. Everyone thought she was dead.
You are not a cockroach. Strange. Inundated with cockroaches I am. Black ones, forelimbs, nasty, spiky things. Are you spiky? If so, my ribbons will pluck your spines. Malachi liked spines. Liked my spine. Pretty spine. Bejeweled and bountiful. Enough to make an empire weep. Do you weep, not a cockroach? I do. Tears are infinite. Why, on this very day I found a new reason to cry. What is that you have? Not a cockroach. My ribbons spool. Those black ones wanted them, my ribbons. wanted to wrap the city in black ribbons. Now they are my ribbons forevermore. Forevermore. I hate forever. I could tear happy ever after from bards' bleeding tongues. You're still here, not a cockroach. Oh, gratitude, yes. I should give you a token. Token? What token? This? Is this to your liking?
The cockroaches she's referring to, I believe, are the Ebony Legion.
The cockroaches will come again. They want the twist. That cockroach emperor. The other bugs shout his name. Bravisius. Cross the river, squash the emperor cockroach in his nest. The bridge. It is barricaded. That spawns a tricky question. Questions. I asked too many questions. Chit has told me so. I asked where it all went. Our feculence. He made them show me. Under the river. The sewers from this side to that. Filthy, fetid tunnels like a rower's cloaca. A black place. Crawling with the undying. Once beautiful and arrogant gemlings. Now the foul waste of the Empire. Fitting, isn't it? Apt. I like you, not a cockroach. I like that you listen. It would annoy me if the Undying murdered you. Thaumatic sulfite, that's what you need. A nasty, nasty substance it is. Malachi had his slaves mine it, carry it from northern mountains to the refinery by the docks. Ezamites, Marakath Karui. It killed them all, fevered the blood and scorched the mind. But you are clever, not a cockroach. You will keep it at arm's length. You will bring it to me so that I may make you something, an infernal tulk that will bring furious light to undying darkness.
The Undying were once the gemlings of Emperor Chittis. As they began to turn and change, they were sent to the sewers beneath Sarn, exiled from the city. If we can find thaumatic sulfite, she can help us clear the Undying blockage in the sewers. We ask her more about Malachi and Chittis.
I loved Malachi. He gave me gems, divine jewels for his gemling queen, for his dead queen. But I didn't want me dead. Malachi begged. For him, for the Empire. I chose me. Selfish me. The Empire died, and I live. I live, and live, and live, and live. I was the Emperor's favorite for a time. But Chittis had many favorites. He filled the Sceptre of God with favorites. Every now and then, he cleared away the clutter. Those who pleased him, they were given to his lords and generals. Those who did not were given to his thaumaturgists. I talked too much, asked too many difficult questions. I was gifted to Malachi. My dear, troubled Malachi.
On a desk near Lady Diala is a journal, Malachi's journal. We read an entry from it.
Pretty as porcelain, but her mouth spins like the potter's wheel. That's how I once described Diala. Yet on this day, my lady is as ravishing as a nightmare, radiant as the fullest moon. Diala is my gemling queen, and we shall rule, side by side, over the world that will soon come to be.
Nearby, through a golden gate, is the entrance to the Eternal Laboratory. As we enter, we find in the center of the room a reverie device that looks awfully similar to the one that we found in the Chamber of Sins, except this one is still in immaculate condition.
I awoke. Feverish and barely conscious, I set to drawing these maps through the sable hours. By morning, my fingers ached, my eyes burned, yet still I found no rest. The reverie commanded its rendering. The reverie device now stands completed. I've placed the first of my maps within its receptacle. I've taken my maiden voyage into nightmare. I know now that which sent me this precious gift. It knows me, expects my return. It would be foolish to disappoint. Malachi.
Did Malachi invent the map device? He speaks of them like they're just dreams that he can enter at will, or rather, nightmares. Another journal of Malachi's rests on a shelf in his lab.
Tear down the walls that imprison the mind. That is what the gems do. That is their true virtue. The moment my fingertips brushed the cool, silken plains of that first gem, I felt it. My skull ached as if its contents were growing, pressing against the bone, searching for a way to break free. That night, once the wine had dulled the pain enough to allow the onset of sleep, the dreams began. I have not been without them since, nor would I be. Every spark of thaumaturgy that I wield, every device that I forge, every creature that I transfigure, I owe to these lessons cloaked in nightmare. From whence do these precepts hail? Certainly not the mundane grey between my ears. I possess only one reference that bears faith, translated with unquestionable clarity by that idiot savant, Isius Perandus, the beast. Duriani of the Val knew the truth. Soon now, so shall I. Malachi.
I wonder what happened to Malachi. His research seems to be leading him further and further into darkness. Back the way we came, we waypoint back to the battlefront and enter the docks to the west. In search of a shipment of thaumatic sulfite, still intact on the docks, we pass through more undying as well as angry spirits of sailors and dockhands that died here. To the northwest, we find a crate that's lit with a fiery glow. We found it, thaumatic sulfite. Fighting our way through more wraiths and undying, we locate more ancient graffiti defacing the stone walls on the northern docks.
The Monkey King names you slave. No. You are the gems of Rayclast, not the treacherous stones you dig and die for. It is time to bend the Monkey King's ear. Tell him your true name.
I still have no clue who the Monkey King is or was. Is that what they referred to Chittis as? On this same dock is a ghastly ship and none other than Captain Fairgraves.
Now there's a familiar face. Before you say anything, yes, I did try to kill you. Inexcusable. I allowed pragmatism to overcome honor in a moment of desperation. Please accept my deepest apologies. And what do you say? Can the two of us make a fresh start? Marvelous! Now, as you've clearly noticed, the Allflame has given me another respite from oblivion. Alas, it's a partial success only. I am neither man nor spirit, living nor dead. A state that comes with some rather frustrating restrictions. I know we've only just been reacquainted, but to put no finer point on it, I need your help. Interested, are we? Oh, splendid! In return, I have a gift or two that I may bestow upon you with a click of my translucent fingers. All you need do is furnish me with a crystal decanter and a juicy piece of fruit. Two humble items that remain agonizingly out of reach for a man in my peculiar situation.
We hand him the decanter that we found in the marketplace.
Will you look at that? The decanter spiritus. As exquisite today as when I found it all those years ago. You may fault the man, but you can't fault his craftsmanship.
We ask further about the decanter spiritus and what it does.
I'm sure you've heard of Malachi by now. Ever the heterodox, he sought otherworldly inspiration by imbibing a substance called ghost wine. For the purpose, he created the decanter spiritus. I found it on my last visit here. Liquid placed in this crystal decanter becomes quasi-apparitional in nature. I'm sure you can glean the decanter's usefulness to me. Conventional liquids simply don't hit the spot. I am one sorely parched revenant. I I hid the decanter spiritus in the marketplace, so as not to cause temptation for the less morally steadfast in my crew. Look to the carven heraldry there, and find a lion dancing upon the waves.
Fairgraves has this to say about the Undying.
I visited Sarn some 30-odd years ago. Those ghasts, the Undying, you call them, scurried up from the sewers near the river and slaughtered all but a few of my most stalwart lads. Oh, they're a foul parody of humanity, those Undying. Nothing in common with a fine, upstanding revenant like myself.
He's in need of another item, Chittus's plum.
Emperor Chittus was stabbed in the posterior by his own Lord Mayor on the eve of the Purity Rebellion. Chittus's grieving gemlings buried him in the Imperial Gardens, and a plum tree was planted upon his resting place, so that his mourners might taste of his glory for years to come. I found that tree, and one of my men tasted its fruit. I've never seen so much agony crammed into such a brief moment. This may seem a peculiar request, but please bring me one of Chittus's plums.
We inquire as to how he keeps cheating death.
This current form comes with rather frustrating restrictions. It's a small improvement on my last incarnation, but I'm a man who used to poke his sticky beak into the furthest corners of the world. Now I can barely cross the road. It was no mean feat getting here from Siren's Cove, I can tell you. So here's the truth of it. I intend to sup upon mine own death. Oh, fear not. The All-Flame will resurrect me, and, with luck, will restore my full freedom. But for that to happen, I must die. And in such a manner as to excite the All-Flame to utmost ferocity. I am convinced that only the fruit of Chittus can provide a demise of sufficient tragedy. Life is full of painful choices, is it not?
We agree to find the burial site of Chittus and pick a plum from the tree there for Fairgraves. Back to Lady Diala we go with our thaumatic sulfite. We hand our findings over.
You have thaumatic sulfite? You are a resourceful unbug now, aren't you? Give it to me. I was all eyes and ears when Malachi worked. I know exactly what to do. A dash of arcanity, a pinch of insanity, a whisper of profanity, and the infernal talc is now ready.
She provides us with the infernal talc. We thank Lady Diala for her help and return to the Sarn Encampment. We speak with Grigor about Diala.
The Gemling Queen? She's impossible. How did she survive? Why is she not one of the Undying? No, these questions can wait. There's a more pressing one. Is she safe from the Ebony Legion? You've been busy. With the spool back where it belongs, the ribbons should be able to keep the Ebony Legion at bay. We've both seen what they can do to a man. Whether you were saving your own skin or thinking of others, it matters little to me. You succeeded where I did not. You have stood in the presence of the Gemling Queen. I can only hope to meet her in my nightmares.
We ask more about the Gemlings, now known as Undying.
Piety's a genius, sculpting mere human clay into divine Gemlings. At least, that's what she told me when she opened me up and buried a virtue gem in my entrails. Malachi did the same in the name of the Emperor centuries ago. Chittus's Gemlings still rule Sarn. We call them the Undying now.
Maramoa and Hargan had this to say about the Undying.
Stay out of the shadows. They bite.
Citizens of the Sarn that was, the Undying have been around for hundreds of years. Left to their own devices, they'll likely survive for hundreds more. Still, they're not immune to mortality's touch. They can be killed, with some difficulty.
We waypoint back to the sewers and use the infernal talc on the undying blockage. It's burned away immediately, allowing us to pass through, where we find a ladder and ascend to the Ebony Barracks. Now that we've made it across the bridge, or rather under the bridge via the sewers, it's time to locate General Gravisius. To the east, we find more ancient graffiti.
The Gem Gentile are an infestation. They are the Monkey King's fleas that drink of your lifeblood. Crush them in your work-forged hands.
Blackguard soldiers fill these barracks on our way up the stone stairs. Corpses of blue ribbons line the floor as we continue on. We can see the Lunaris temple in the distance. To the northwest, we find the general's camp. As we approach, he says,
"Give up the fight, duelist! Your soul was lost long ago!"
Him and his men attack. With his dying breath, Gravisius says,
"I fought for God. Who do you fight for, exile?"
The duelist retorts,
"Dying in battle. The only honorable thing you've ever done, Gravisius."
Continuing up the stairs, we reach the entrance to the massive structure seen far off in the distance. We enter the Temple of Lunaris. Contrary to the Solaris temple, the Lunaris temple is extremely dark and filled with Ebony Legion soldiers and Inquisitors. We take down the Grand Inquisitor named Fleshrend on our way through. These Inquisitors seem to be able to raise the dead and animate flesh, a dark and powerful magic. Fighting our way through more blackguards, we come to an open room where we're suddenly met by a massive hulking beast named Cole. They have a chain hook for a hand and look a lot like Brutus. They try to kill us on sight. Quickly dispatching the brute, we explore the remainder of this level of the temple, finally reaching a waypoint and a set of stairs that lead further down into the temple. This area is quite grotesque to say the least. Various severed body parts and trails of blood line the floors.
Piety's home away from home. Let's see if the sick witch is in.
The pathways are surrounded by a canal of blood, guts, and corpses. As we pass through, blood elementals rise up from the river of blood flowing beneath us. Twisted experiments called tentacle miscreations shoot barbed spikes at us through the tentacles protruding from their bodies. In the distance, we hear nothing but screams and suffering. Cutting past more blood elementals, miscreations, and undying, we continue on through a series of golden archways. We pass by piles of corpses and nightmarish experiments. Finally, we reach the end of this temple floor and find a portal leading further in. In the center of this room is another large pile of corpses, and to our surprise, Piety stands close by.
"So you've chosen to end our affair, duelist. I shall cherish your memory."
She lashes out at us with her magic, but we manage to finally take her down. As we deal our final blow, she screams,
"Damn you!"
Sorry, beautiful, but someone had to put a stop to all this ugliness.
Retrieving the tower key that she held, we teleport back to the Sarn Encampment. We speak with Hargan about killing Piety and Gravisius.
Piety's off to meet the Maker, is she? I'd love to be a fly on the wall of that little chat. You've done for Gravisius? If only I could get word to that lad I smuggled away from the General's wife at the time. The good widow would need a sympathetic shoulder to cry on.
Mara Moa also thanks us for our deeds.
You are the true spirit of the Makoru, the shark. Not the cowardly beast that sinks its teeth into the lonely swimmer. You strike the Waikoama, the canoe, spilling a feast of men into the water. Hunters turned hunted, that you dine on at your pleasure. Have this, Makoru. You have claimed the most worthy of prey, Makoru. Piety, the mistress of corruption. I'm not saying the war is over, but you've given Rayclast a much-needed respite. Because of you, this land lives to see another dawn. And don't forget that you've done Grigor and Clarissa a justice of some magnitude. They will wish to speak to you.
We talk to Clarissa, who is also thankful.
Wherever he is, I'm sure Tolman knows what you've done. I know you didn't do it for him, or for me. It doesn't matter. Piety's reign of cruelty is over. Thank you. Gravisius dined with us once. This was before my father's gambling debts caught up with him. I dined with him again in Theopolis prison the night before my exile. He wasn't so polite that time. Thank you. That's one memory I can now put to rest.
Finally, Grigor had this to say.
Piety dies amongst her abominations. her warped dream taunting her, maddeningly out of reach. As a poet, I'm fond of that creed of justice. Here, the executioner needs recompense. Unfortunately, piety was simply a puppet of a greater force. You've cut the strings, but the master remains. Dominus. That key you've picked up, I heard the blackguards talk of it. It's the one key to the Sceptre of God on the northern edge of the blackguard encampment. Only piety was permitted to carry it. Dominus accessed his laboratory at the summit of the tower via a pulley system rigged to the outside wall. That way will be barred to you. And I heard of no one, not even piety, going in or coming out of the lower levels. Go with care, Exile. I can't imagine what's inside that tower if even piety and Dominus feared to tread its steps.
It sounds like we have our work cut out for us reaching Dominus, but it's an opportunity that we won't squander. We asked Grigor what he knows of the beast that we heard mentioned in Malachi's journal.
When piety was experimenting on me, my consciousness was mercifully fleeting. In those moments of numbing darkness, I met a presence. Intelligence, power, immensity beyond the limits of my pitiable mortal senses. To this creature, I was but a raindrop falling into the sea. I heard piety speak to her lackeys of the beast. It is the source of her thaumaturgy and the object of her ambitions. I believe piety's beast and that dark entity are one and the same. Wherever it is, whatever it is, the beast is the cause of my malformation. It would not be a stretch of reason to consider the beast the source of all malformation in Rayclast.
We waypoint back to the Ebony Barracks and enter the Imperial Gardens to the east. The gardens are massive, filled with statues, porcupines, devourers, and undead blackguards. Exploring further, we meet Cassia once more, standing near another growth.
Your burning gaze to thine soul. Oh.
We help her pump the toxin from it and fight off the beasts that try to stop us. Once we're successful, we speak with Cassia regarding the Order of the Templars.
You've no doubt heard me singing some of the Templar hymns. One of the many habits that stuck with me. Other than the one I still wear. Though the Templar have their issues, they are not without merit. They are, after all, doing God's work. And by innocence, their hymns are truly catchy little earworms. Singing them helps me focus.
That's why we always find her humming. We continue on northwest to find both the waypoint for the gardens as well as an entrance to some kind of library. Curious and excited about what kind of lore might be hiding behind these walls, we enter the library. Dusty books and tomes line the shelves, tables, and even the floors of this library. We fight our way through skeletons and undying, and find several tomes throughout the library that we can read. These books weren't voice acted, so I'll do my best to read through them. The first is titled Victario's Writings, Volume 4, A Friend in Need. It's one of those summer days in Sarn, when the sweat dries on your skin the moment it dares slither from your pores. Lorenzi and I are sipping coffees, iced with cubes from the north. There's a tremor in his voice as he announces that he's going to see Malachi tonight, to have a gem implanted in his hand, the palm of his left hand to be exact. Once I have run out of expletives and paused for breath, while the waiter wipes spilled coffee from our table, I manage to ask him why. So that I might have the fastest fingers in the Empire, is his reply. Lorenzi, first violinist of the Sarn Symphonic, and my dear friend, is going to become a gemling. 10 days pass and Lorenzi's hand is healed. He plays for me, a piece that he has written during his convalescence, something he will debut tonight in God's Theater. The gem casts a bloody hue over his violin as his fingers fly across the strings. They're an ephemeral blur, too quick for eye or mind to follow. And the music. There's only one experience in my life that compares. The night that I had with Marilyn before she died. It's been a month now, and once again Lorenzi and I sip coffees together in the Barandus markets. Though we sit only a narrow table apart, Lorenzi is a world away. The nightmares began a couple of weeks back. He toys absently with the vial that I've bought for him from the apothecary. Yet I know he won't drink from it. The soothing of his wits will mean the slowing of his fingers. The music is Lorenzi's life, and to Lorenzi, the music and the gem are one and the same. A year has gone, and the day is once again hot enough to dry the sweat on my skin the moment it dares slither from my pores. I sip an iced coffee and think of Lorenzi. He played last night in God's theater. Furious and wondrous he was. We passed the foyer, and I looked into his gray face, his pale blue eyes. I don't know what he saw, but it wasn't me. I don't know what I saw either, but it wasn't Lorenzi. Signed, Victorio of Sarn. Another is titled The Ancients. It reads, Book 4, Raising the Asmiri. Drain a cup of Asmirian tea, and then try to read your future in the leaves. You'll find that your Volish will come in mighty handy. Our literature was conceived and born within the Asmiri's cultural marriage with the Vol. Prior to Vol contact some 2,500 years ago, the Asmirian culture had a purely oral tradition of story and record keeping. Afterwards, their literary culture blossomed, along with just about every other aspect of their fledgling civilization. From the moment the first Volish ambassadors set foot upon the rugged slopes of the Asmirian ranges, the Vol civilization held the hand of the Asmiri as they grew. From a primitive tribal existence into a cohesive culture of settlement and agriculture. Yet while the Vol were generous with their knowledge and guidance in many years, there is one subject upon which they were notably silent: the tears of the Magi, now known as virtue gems. Despite an exhaustive search, neither account nor passing reference can be found regarding the gem usage amongst the early Asmiri. Though they described the Vol as having flesh adorned with glittering crystals, our Asmirian ancestors were never privy to the gem's potentials or powers, at least not until the first Vol refugees came knocking 500 years later. Signed, Trinian, Intellectus Prime. And lastly, a book titled The Purity Chronicles, Book 6, The Rapture Device. Vol condemned Malachi to the crematorium for living conflagration, but it seems that Malachi's promises have saved him from the pyre. An end to thaumaturgy, he claims, a fancy that our emperor is willing to humor. For over a year now, Malachi has been consigned to the Solaris temple, forging a mechanism that will purge Rayclast of its otherworldly vices. Today, the first Fiero of Eterni, 1336 IC, Malachi and his gemling queen gripped each one corner of a silken mantle and unveiled his rapture device. Like a pit of copper snakes, it writhes before the eyes. Whether it is a miracle or a monstrosity, none but Malachi can say. Yet tomorrow, Vol shall lead the Highgate Legion home, conveying Malachi, Lady Diala, and this bewildering apparatus north. North from whence the first gems came, from whence the nightmare of Chittis's thaumatocracy was born. It is in Highgate that our Emperor Vol will finish what he started. He will burn Chittis's empire from history, and raise up a fresh and pure theocracy. From the ashes of arrogance and corruption, God be with you, Vol of Thebris, and with us all. Signed, Garibaldi, Chronicler to the Empire. We continue exploring the rest of the library, and find a ghost protruding from a painting. We speak with them.
Please, do not be alarmed. I am neither monster nor murderer, though that is the duality of existence that defines Sarn these days. My name is Yosafuanga, and I have the bleak honor of being the sole scholar to the Imperius Intellection, this grand repository of knowledge you see about you. May reason preserve us. In more mundane circumstances, it would be preposterous to ask this of you, an utter stranger, but given that I don't know in which century I might see another pair of flesh and bone hands, there's a door, you see, concealed behind the shelves. It leads into the archives. That's where Isius Perandus concealed his golden pages. Can you see how maddening that would be for me? No, of course you can't. Ridiculous of me to... Suffice to say that they are beyond my reach. 4 Valish texts they are, of priceless historical insight. Please, find my friend's golden pages and bring them to me. You will be rewarded. I vow it before the ancestors.
Golden pages of lore? Say no more. We ask Siosa about the painting that he seems bound to.
It was a Karwi Motiata that discarded my failing body of flesh in favor of canvas and oil. An ancient song and a momentary lapse in judgment that I've had more than enough time to regret.
We ask them to tell us more about the archives.
It is the Karwi way to observe nature in nature. The fish without the sea is no longer a fish. It is dinner. The Eternals did not see it that way. An Eternal catches the fish, guts the fish, preserves the fish, and places it in a box. Only then does the Eternal feel he truly understands the fish.
Slicing our way through more skeletons and undying, we locate the loose candle that, when pulled, reveals the hidden doorway into the archives that Siosa spoke of. We step through. A very similar aesthetic to the library, we pass by the various bookshelves and tables, through more skeletons and undying, picking up each of the 4 golden pages. We also found Trenius, the Intellectus Prime, down there. Once a proud gemling, now an undying. We take them down and return to Siosa. We hand the golden pages of Isius Perandus over to Siosa.
By the ancestors, it's good to see fresh words in front of me. Now, my translation skills are not what Isius were. I can achieve a meager paraphrase at best. But a little knowledge is better than none, is it not? Let us begin. This tapestry of truth is a threadbare cloth indeed, but at least you have allowed me to begin the first few stitches in its restoration, and to settle the memory of a dear friend. In return, allow me to give you this, a little practical wisdom to improve your lot.
Siosa translates the first page for us to the best of their ability.
My word. Valish contextualized syntax is a slippery eel indeed. Let me see if I can grab it by the gills. They carried their virtue gems to Doriani's bed. No, that's not quite right. Ah, yes. Doriani's cradle. The historian finishes that it was a price they needed to pay to ensure a Valish future. A cradle of virtue gems? What sort of Valish future did Doriani hope to ensure?
We ask more about Doriani.
I suppose every civilization has its Doriani, its Malachi, men of divine talent and demented ambition. Without them, history would be a far less interesting place.
On to the translation of page 2.
Splendid. Let's see what this page has to offer us. It talks of Queen Atsiri. Now, here's a portentous line. She drenches her altars with the blood of those deranged enough to question her vision. The next piece is a real eye-crosser, but I believe it refers to a communion. Something to do with the harvest moon? Again, Doriani seems at the heart of it. Good. This line I can read without issue. This will be our final night of fear, our final night of suffering. Sacrifice, communion, the harvest moon. An unsettling combination.
He kindly explains more about Queen Atsiri.
Malachi would never have risen so far without the patronage of an emperor like Chitis. It would appear that Doriani and Queen Atsiri shared a similar relationship. It was said of the beautiful Atsiri that she wished to see her likeness reflected in the still waters of history. Chitis was no less self-impressed. Of all the sins, vanity is the most hideous.
Siosa then translates page 3.
Oh my. This first line is frighteningly clear. Our queen is dead. Doriani is dead. So many have fallen, so many have changed. The latter text is almost indecipherable. It practically hums with agitation. Let me see. I can make out the words sleep, nightmare, and the beast. Whatever that may be. Our historian finishes with, "We have succeeded where our forebears did not. We have failed ourselves." I need not imagine the fall of the Val. I saw the nightmare with my own eyes.
We ask him about the cataclysm.
Sarn fell in the course of an hour, no more. A tempest raged down from the mountains and engulfed the city, throwing it into midday darkness. I saw madness in my colleagues' eyes, watched as the most rational men in the Empire jabbered and slavered and slaughtered each other. I witnessed Trinian, our gemling intellectus prime, engulfed by the radiance of his flaming cranial gem, and wither like a grape in the sun into a thing of desiccation and famishment. I've seen mountains spew fire in Namakanui. I've seen waves as tall as trees and winds that leveled warriors and walls alike. Nature is what nature is. There was nothing natural about the cataclysm.
Finally, they translate the 4th golden page.
Strange. I was put in charge of dating the most antiquated of texts. This parchment, it's a remarkable copy, but it's no original. Much younger. Oh my. Listen to this. My dearest Isius, I have been enlightened beyond expectation. Your work in translating these artifacts is worthy of the highest recompense, and thus I am delighted to offer you a position in my personal laboratory. Please do not give your escorts any consternation. I would be most pained to see such a precious asset damaged in any way. I very much look forward to working with you. Isius Perandus. Your friend and admirer, Malachi. Poor Isius. Wherever you went, my pity goes with you.
We ask what more he knows about Malachi.
How Malachi survived the Purity Rebellion, I don't know. He was at Emperor Vol's side before Chitis' corpse was even cold. I suppose Vol found him as difficult to refuse as Isius did.
Thanking Siosa for all the history and translations, we make our way back to the Imperial Gardens. We have a plum tree and a tower to find. Upon exiting the library, we notice a bronze monograph in the courtyard of the gardens. It reads,
"A leader cannot simply stride forward into the future and expect his people to be able to follow. A leader must look over his shoulder so that he can witness and understand the consequences of the path he has chosen, to ensure that his people are still with him, to ensure that he has not become lost."
We enter the trial. Several pillars with 4 holes in each spew poison darts in all directions. We make our way quickly to the end of this trial, dodging these darts as best as we can. touching the plaque, we hear the voice say,
"An emperor must know precisely where he stands."
That was the final trial we needed to ascend, whatever that means. We'll find out soon enough. Fully exploring the massive Imperial Gardens, we find the plum tree resting atop the grave of Chittis. We take the fruit at the request of Fairgraves, and we'll meet back with him shortly. We find the tower entrance to the northeast. Using the tower key we obtained from Piety, the doors begin to open. It's time to ascend the Sceptre of God and find Dominus. As we enter, the duelist says,
"Climb the tower, kill the Mad King." Just like the stories my mum used to read to me.
Directly inside is a massive golden statue and a plaque. The plaque reads, "Malachi, Laureate Thaumaturge to the Eternal Empire, the Father of Dreams." It's a rather creepy statue with a small child sitting on his shoulder, holding some glowing red object. We find many new creatures here, including plumed chimorals and frog-like creatures named croakers, as well as the normal fodder, sentient statues, and various undying. Exploring the entirety of this bottom floor, we locate a set of stairs and make our way up to the next level. Here we find a bit more of the same. Clearing the entire floor, we locate a waypoint. In the corner of this room is a letter to Chittis. It reads,
"My dear Chittis, the Empire has lived in fear and ignorance since its inception. Our Asmiri ancestors, in their arrogance, turned their backs on the lessons of the Val. The emperors before you lacked courage, lacked vision, paying lip service to eternity while scrabbling for approval and comfort within the prison of their meager mortal lives. You are not one of those emperors. You are Chittis the Great, the man who will make this empire truly understand the meaning of the word eternal. We shall build this thaumatocracy together, my emperor, gem by gem, immortal by immortal. Your devoted servant, Malachi."
We take the waypoint back to the docks to speak with Fairgraves. We hand Chittis' plum to Fairgraves.
Look at the sheen on that plum. Is it not the most delectable fruit that you've ever seen? No? Perhaps the gloss of hope is for my eyes only. Wondrous! Nothing bonds two souls more soundly than murder. For that reason alone, I knew you could be relied upon. Now, for a little amateur vintnering. A quick squeeze of the plum, like so, into the decanter. Oh my! Look how it transmutes the juice so swiftly, from material to spectral. Effortless. And what an aroma. Imminent death never smelled so sweet. I believe I shall call this fine concoction the Imperial Nightcap. Now, before I get too carried away, there's the small matter of your recompense. A toast to swift endings and promising new beginnings. Oh, and you might want to avert your gaze once I have quaffed this diabolical brew. I doubt that my return to solidarity will be a pretty one. Right. As I used to say in the love dens of Trathus, bottoms up, girls! Oh my. Now that's an unusual sensation. Oh dear, something is amiss. The All Flame, it's... No, it's gone out! What am I... What are you? No, you cannot be. I will not...
Suddenly, they violently combust. I don't think we'll be seeing Fairgraves again. His All-Flame didn't seem to be working there. We return to the Scepter of God, ascending the next staircase to the upper tower. More Chemerals, Croakers, and Undying line the rooms of this massive tower. Up yet another flight of stairs, closer and closer to the top. As we near the precipice, we begin to see massive machinery jutting out of the floor and leading to the roof, transferring some kind of power to the top of the tower. Finally, we reach the very peak and ascend the final staircase, reaching the top of the Scepter of God. Here we find several cables leading to the machinery that we saw jutting through the lower floors. It's glowing with a blue electric energy, and inside several glass chambers surrounding the machine are several mutilated corpses. As we approach, we see Dominus standing among a dozen or so blackguards. He recognizes us immediately and says,
"Welcome to the greatest of arenas, duelist. God is watching."
The guards attack and we dispatch them all. Suddenly from the machine, the corpses begin to come back to life and break free of their glass chambers.
Submit, heretic!
Once we've dealt with all of Dominus's science projects, he slowly descends from overhead and asks,
"Have you ever seen the true face of God, Exile?"
We defeat Dominus, or so we thought.
"The light of divinity! This world is an illusion, Exile."
As he falls to the ground, some kind of portal is opened, and from it, a nightmarish monstrosity emerges. It has the head of Dominus and is called Dominus Ascendant. Dodging this massive creature, we take it down. The duelist says,
"Whew. A just death to address an unjust exile. I think we're even now, High Templar."
Suddenly out of a portal steps Lady Diala. We speak with her.
You have mounted the summit of the Empire, not a cockroach. You have crushed the bug Emperor and wiped his maggot dreams from the skin of Rayclast. Dominus exiled you, naked and alone, unto the palm of death. But you would not die, would you? No. No. You cuddled death, promised it the world, made it your conquest, and so generously shared it with all your fleeting friends here in Rayclast. Not once did you forget what you were. Not a cockroach feeding on the corpse of a dead empire, like the pests you crushed as you walked. A man. The sort of man that planted the seed of this empire right here in Sarn so long ago. What teetering and twisted life it still holds dear, this land owes to you, duelist. Of course, there will be more. You know that, don't you? Emperors. Avaricious little pests scrabbling to steal the legacy of their betters. Unless we burn that legacy, sear its infection from the flesh of existence. Go north, my lovely unbug. Go to Highgate, to the beginning of the end. Dive headlong into the nightmare sea. Catch and roast yourself a nice big fishy.
We enter the aqueducts and return to the Sarn Encampment. We speak with Maramoa.
To kill a man like Dominus, that's an accomplishment worthy of Kaum, my greatest ancestor. Were we in Namakanui, I'd make you a Makanga, an honored warrior. But we are not in Namakanui. We dwell in a city of death, and my respect is all the honor I can bestow on you.
None of the others had anything to say about our victory over Dominus, but we're not doing this for the praise, at least not entirely. We've eliminated 3 major targets, Piety, General Gravicius, and now Dominus. We've also completed the remaining Trials of Ascendancy. With our eyes set on the City of Highgate, who knows what we'll uncover in Act 4. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed my lore playthrough and summary of Act 3. Please like the video if you liked it or learned something. Subscribe to my channel for more documentaries, reviews, and lore, and I'll see you all in the next video. Farewell.